And then let me say good morning, Corona Daze Professional Development Group. Thank you for joining us this morning. Today I am here with our friend, Mike Paduruno. He's gonna talk to us about the power of loss. Mike is gonna discuss today loss of self, loss of people, and loss of things, and teach us how we can learn how to turn loss into a pivot moment. We all know and love Mike, but let me tell you a little about him. Mike is the Chief Strategy Officer and Chairman of the Board of GIVE's Global Immersion Virtual Education System. Mike uses his experience in leadership as a top-notch strategic education relationship builder to help as many people as possible. You guys asked Mike to come back before he finished talking the last time. So I'm gonna turn it over to him. I'm gonna mute myself. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the chat and I will get them to Mike. All right, here you go. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, here goes nothing, right? Like I'm good at winging things, so we're just going to wing this because unfortunately I have way too much experience with the power of loss. My whole life, I've had situations, circumstances, people, places, things, possessions that I've always lost. At the end of the day, I never had myself, so I couldn't lose myself. I've never looked for myself. I've never found myself until recent times. What I do know is that losing things, having circumstances, having situations, losing people, sometimes it's permanent, sometimes it's temporary. I think that the adaptability and the pivot moment is when you either accept that it's permanent or you find your way to keep it temporary. When it's permanent, there's only so much we can do, right? We just have to accept, we have to accept it for what it is. We have to allow our feelings to process, and then we have to release it. And if it's a person, we definitely keep it close to our heart and our soul. But we need to release the pain because there's so much pain, and there's so much pain in the world today that we grab onto it, we hold it, and it really grabs us, and it has a way of bringing us down. For me, no matter who it was that I've lost, whether it was my grandmothers, my step grandfather, my mother, my aunts, no matter who it was in my life, I always found that there was a tremendous amount of pain, guilt, suffering. There was a tremendous amount of suffering of that person leading up to it, and it helped me make my peace. Right? There's been many losses that I've had of people that it was sudden and unexpected. And those are the ones that I guess can really rock us because you just start questioning why. When people are sick and you're watching them deteriorate over time, in some way it's almost a relief, right? For them, their soul, their purpose, their pain that they're going through at that moment. It doesn't always help us handle it better, but it makes it, at least on a logical level for me, because I'm a very logical person, it makes me accept it better. The allowing the emotions, now that is something that I am not good at. I shouldn't say that. It's something I've never been good at. These days, I have daily practices that are helping me to allow those emotions to flow. Some days I cry, some days I'm laughing, some days I'm smiling, some days I'm doing all of them. Some days you're just rolling with it as it goes because all you can do is be your best self, right? And when you're processing loss of any kind, and right now there is so much, people are losing so many things. They're losing security, they're losing financial security, that it's a very difficult time for everyone. And I think there's a tremendous amount of empathy in the world today. And it's really the empathy that can lift us up and show us that guiding light, that guiding hope of a way to be better. For me, the steps of processing loss, no matter what the loss is, I overanalyze it because that's just who I am. Then I turn around and I accept it on a mental level. Now I allow the emotions to flow. In the past, sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. And then I release it, right? And I release it from my soul so that it doesn't keep hanging on to me and dragging behind me as I try to move forward. I'm very good at extreme circumstances. I handle those better than your everyday ones, but I am learning through the tools that I'm being taught from Sherry Lewick and a few others that new ways to handle those daily ones so that I can be better within that as well. The extremes, my initial reaction is always just to flip it over, flip it on its side, find a new way, and immediately motivate it to a new direction. So there's been many times in my life, whether it was 2008 where I had a company go belly up because I had a bad business partner and I made some bad decisions with that partner, and I lost everything. Within 3 weeks, we went, my soon-to-be wife at the time and my soon-to-be ex-wife now, we went from, doing good, everything was moving forward, having a ton of hope and a ton of promise, to couch surfing and not really having a home of our own when my soon-to-be ex-wife was 36 weeks pregnant with my daughter, my oldest. And I immediately started working on a new plan. Like, I don't know why I do it, but I do, right? I always find a way to create something new and just start moving forward. I always find a way to overcome. I always find that drive, that resilience, that motivation to push through. And I'm very fortunate because I don't know if everybody has that. I can only speak based upon myself. But all I know is that when given the option to give up or face it and move forward and come up with another way to create hope within myself, I do. I create hope. And that helps me really handle the power of loss. And it helps me adapt, and it helps me to pivot those moments into really great things. So if you go back to 2008 when I lost, or 2009, I'm sorry, when I lost everything, and then, started rebuilding again from scratch, within a few months, I was working with the UNDP. I was part of a UNDP organization. I was building up a global network of associates and partners to the point where we were working in over 25 countries. We were working on global infrastructure projects, waste to energy plants, solar fields, water filtration units to bring to areas that didn't have clean drinking water. For me, it's always about having a purpose. I need to find that purpose. When I find that passion-driven purpose, I'm able to adapt and overcome much quicker. I've always had a very easy time looking outside of myself to be able to find those passion-driven purposes and to be able to look beyond my current circumstance. What I realized today is some of that was evading my current situation and not allowing and processing it. But at the same time, it's also one of my greatest qualities because it allowed me to just adapt and move instantly without hesitation, without doubt, without second guessing. I just moved and shifted. Now, that company that I created in 2009 didn't work out either for different reasons because of global economy, global economic crash. I was working with governments around the world, but there was no money flow to make these things happen. But what I did get from it was an enormous learning experience, a global network. I partnered with the UNDP for 5 years. I mean, there was many positives that came out of this. And I also worked with amazing innovative technologies. I still speak to a lot of those people that I dealt with then, and I still have plans in everything that I build going forward to still work with some of them. There is no true failure in my mind, right? When I look at failure, and we could say failure is a loss, failure is anything, but when I look at failure, it's really a lesson. And the lesson for me is what I absorb, learn from it, and move forward. And the lessons, if you look at failure as a lesson rather than a failure, one, your mental state is much better off. Two, you don't blame yourself as much, even though you did make a mistake, but you're adapting and learning from it and taking the lesson for what it is. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're building yourself up. And nobody reaches their final destination by taking one journey, taking one path, making one mistake, or making one positive. You need to absorb, you need to learn, you need to evolve over time. And I feel like all these losses really add up. Now, when it comes to loss of self is interesting. Something happened to me in March, right? My current circumstance got my kids out of a bad situation. I have emergency custody of them. I'm stranded 1,200 miles from home. All these details, right? And my life was very uncertain, and I'm still stranded, right? It's still almost 7 months later, and I'm still stranded. I could have collapsed. I could have fell on my face, and I did for a period of time. But in March, I met somebody who really saw me, right? I felt seen for the first time probably in my whole life. And at that time, when I met this person, I started finding myself. Now, during this process of finding myself, I got so caught up in other things and other situations and circumstances that I actually lost myself. And I had to take a step back and reevaluate. I completely lost myself in this situation. I didn't even know who I was at that moment. So I spent all this time and all this work finding myself only to lose myself. It was the most painful experience that I've ever had in my life. And losing myself and then removing myself from the situation was even harder. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done, right? But I had to put myself first. Without putting ourselves first, we never really reach a destination that, is worth it. We can't be anything to anyone else if we don't have ourselves. And this is what I'm learning through this process, right? We want to talk about, I don't ever judge anyone. Well, if you're not judging anybody, or if you're judging yourself, then you're obviously judging others also. If you're lying to yourself, then you're lying to others. If you're manipulating yourself, then you're manipulating others. This is a true inside job, right? And when it comes to the power of loss, you need to be real raw and vulnerable with yourself, and you need to be really honest with yourself. You need to really evaluate, are you being so selfish why the loss affects you so much, no matter what it is? Or are you looking at it from the other perspective of whether it was an individual, a thing, an object, no matter what it could be, right? And is it permanent, or is it something that you can shift and change? So the power of loss to me is the self-awareness, the innovation, and becoming a better version of yourself. Loss carries so much within us. There's so much pain. There's so much good memories as well sometimes, right? Like sometimes, we like to celebrate life instead of mourn over the death sometimes, because it's easier to celebrate someone's life than it is to be sad. At the end of the day, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to have your emotions. It's okay to feel not right about something. Those are all things that are natural. Those are things that what make us human, right? If we're not allowing and processing those emotions, then we're not being our most genuine selves, and at some point we become disingenuous. Again, it's an inside job, and this is when I look at things, and with the world the way that it is today, with the division and the divisive natures and politics and all the isms, right? All the isms are coming to the forefront because it's easier to point fingers and create divisive natures than it is to be able to come together and unify. When we look around us and we see people losing things, then we start getting scared, right? We start believing in scarcity. Scarcity has a ton of power. It has the power that we allow it to have over us. But if you really look at situations and you really identify it, there is no scarcity. We create our own limiting beliefs, and when we break those limiting beliefs, that makes everything limitless. Scarcity is what we choose to decide it is, and abundance is the reality. If you look at this group, Corona Daze, that Danette has put together and worked with so many people on, the way that everybody in this group unifies and rallies together and helps each other and supports each other and wants to hear different people's perspectives and wants to learn and wants to move forward and wants a better life. And it's truly global. I mean, there's people everywhere. It's a beautiful thing, and the world needs more of it, right? The world needs more of coming together to overcome losses. But I really believe a lot of these losses are lessons, right? Because we perceive them as failures at the time. But if anybody looks back over the last 10 years of their life, they'll look at certain losses, certain failures, and they'll be like, I really learned a lot from that. I think there's an introspective way to be able to look at certain circumstances, situations, people, places, things, and reevaluate what the reality was. When we're in the moment, it's very difficult. But I do know that when you're looking back, and that old saying of hindsight's 20/20 is true, because once you're past a situation, you're actually able to see what the real impact was. Then you're able to come up with what you grew from it. But if there's a way to, while in a circumstance, or while in a situation or while feeling loss, to be able to go introspective and find your own pattern and be able to find your own ways that you've always dealt with things, then you'll be able to come back that much faster. You'll be able to bounce back that much faster from a lesson, from a loss. Um, and it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, whether it's people, places, or things, obviously on an emotional level, the human attachment to another human is the most powerful thing that we have, because that's what unites us together. Um, but loss is felt in all different ways, right? Sometimes you get depressed, sometimes you get really sad, sometimes you get happy and you don't know why, just because your body doesn't know how to handle it, so it's just reacting the only way that it can cope. I think there's a lot to be said for that cloud nine feeling where, I mean, I've been sober 14 years, and when I first got sober, it was like, oh, just wait, you're on that cloud, nothing's perfect yet, you got to do the work. And I saw many people, go back out and not make it through their recovery because they were in those cloud nine moments and they thought they were doing great, right? Everything became clear for them. They felt like it was perfect. And the reality is, without doing the work, nothing is. And you don't get over these things. These are lifelong decisions, habits, creations that we've done over time. And I feel like loss is the same way. We just need to break it down to where, in any way that we can make it palatable for ourselves, to understand what's really going on. There's a spiritual approach, there's a religious approach, there's a mental approach, there's a physical approach. And I feel like, depending on the loss, depending on the circumstance, everybody handles it in their own way. For me, losing myself this most recent time, and this is what I'm going to come back to, it was very difficult, right? Because I thought I was doing the work, and I thought that I was really making progress. And I got so wrapped up in a circumstance that I truly lost myself. And when I lost myself, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to get out of it because I've never had myself before. It was very scary, right? And once I was able to remove myself from the circumstance on a temporary basis, which at that point I didn't know if it was temporary, I didn't know if it was permanent, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that something had to change. I did make a rash decision. It probably wasn't the best decision, but I did it for the right reasons, to find myself again. When you lose yourself in something, I think it takes a radical decision to find yourself. I think it takes a radical response to break that routine that you're creating for yourself. Losing yourself is the most powerful thing in the world. And if you look at it as a lesson, it's also the best thing in the world, because then you have to recreate yourself, and you're able to rewrite that script. You're able to rebuild yourself from whatever level you're at. You're able to pick yourself up and evolve and grow from it. I think, my version of how I look at loss is so much different than many people, because I'm just one of those people that just will keep pushing forward through anything that I lose. But at the same time, it's just as painful. At the same time, I still have nights that I cry myself to sleep. At the same time, I still have days that I just cry for a couple hours. I think that it's overwhelming for all of us, but it's the people connection, the human connection, and groups like what Danette has built here that can lift us all up and inspire us to be better selves, our best selves daily. I think I'm going to close it there and see if if anybody has any questions. I know it's a little short, and usually I run my mouth forever, but this topic's pretty cut and dry.
No, that's okay. That's all right, Mike. I'm gonna look in the chat. I see comments. I don't see any questions, but we might have one or two. Let me check a look here. Guys, if you have any questions, please drop them for Mike. Let me just give you some of these comments, Mike. Give me a moment to open the chat. Mike, you are dropping jewels over here. Your vulnerability is refreshing. You covered so much. I am working on growing and healing every day. How did you find your own pattern? And was it based on mental or spiritual beliefs?
Finding my own pattern was interesting. I think it's a combination of both, right? And when I look at myself, I have my own trinity. I look at it, there's mental, there's heart, and then there's soul, right? So there's mind, body, and soul. For me, my own patterns, I've always been somebody who's identified patterns, and it's just been very natural to me to do so. Yes, Sid. We have our 3-year-old. It's
okay.
Not the same with us.
It's all right.
But, for me, identifying patterns has always come natural. I think where I'm at today, because I've had such a spiritual awakening again. Yeah, go see Shell. Okay. Since I've had this major spiritual awakening over the last few months again, which is the second or third time in my life that I've had it, it's really become a spiritual and mental and a heart and an emotional journey. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on all the pieces at once, which I think is one of the reasons that my transformation is escalating in time period. So apparently,
okay. Maybe she wants to say hello. What's her name? Sydney?
Yeah, Sid, you want to say hi?
No? Okay. All right. It's okay, Mike.
So I'm going to be walking now. So, I'm still here. I'm just going to be walking down the hall.
All right.
Somewhere. But yeah, I think it's all of them, right? I think to find your patterns, you need to look at all angles. On the spiritual side or religious side, whatever your personal beliefs are, I think it works the same way. If you have those beliefs, then you need to find your pattern of how you rely on it, how you go back to it, and what support it brings you at those moments, right? That's your patterns. Now, there's triggers also, and there's things that can bring you to those situations. And once you start identifying your patterns and you start seeing when you go to those solutions, then you're able to identify what trigger sent you there. And that's where the real power is, because when you take the power away from your triggers, then you're not going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah. Can you tell us one thing that you do to start your day that seems to make a difference in how things progress?
Well, based on the fact that I'm a single dad of 3, right, and they get up at different times, I now wake up at 4:30 in the morning and Sid, listen to me. It's cold out, and you need a new diaper, and then we'll go outside. Okay? Michelle, help her with her shirt. Michelle, please help her with her shirt. She's wearing her shirt like a dress, so you just. But yeah, it's identifying the triggers is the key, right? Because that's how you break the pattern. That's how you break the patterns. Once you know the triggers and you take the power away from them, then it's limitless. What I do in the morning is I get up at 4:30. I meditate. I have daily reading that I do, like little reminders that kind of keep me in check every day. Little inspirational quotes, things that I've written to myself. I have all sorts of things that I read every morning. And then I do meditate, I exercise, and I also write my gratitude list. So the gratitude list is also a huge key because it puts me in the right mindset to attack the day, including when you have a grumpy 3-year-old.
Let me see if we have anything else. Well, we have, hey, Sydney. Hi, Sydney.
Here, Sid, say hi. No. Okay.
All right. What I do in the morning when I just started doing this, maybe around January, and I got it from my therapist, is I suffer from anxiety. And there are some days when I can wake up anxious,
Yes.
And I think, oh, I did everything right. Even if I had a decent night's sleep, I woke up and I did a little bit of meditation, but I'm still like kind of anxious. I do this check-in with myself to figure out, well, where am I on a scale of 1 to 10? Where's my anxiety? And if I know that I'm already waking up at a 5 or 6, then I may meditate a little longer. I might not jump on the computer as early as possible, so it's kind of, you're already on the edge, Danette. So you're gonna need to reset. however you need to reset, whether it is doing some more meditation, whether it's listening to some music, whether it's praying or whatever, or writing. But that has helped me a lot to figure out where am I as soon as I wake up. So it's no longer wake up and I have to immediately do this and immediately do that. And first I have to say, where are you? How are you doing? You know, what are you feeling? And feel it. Allow yourself to feel it, and then figure out the rest of the day. Even if I had a whole day planned, if I'm not mentally on point, I'm not going to be right. So I need to do whatever I need to do to get myself on point, or keep myself at that same level of anxiety and not go up further, you know? And that helps.
For me, what's helped, right, is to block it out of my schedule, right? Because I'm such a scheduled person.
Mm-hmm.
You look at my calendar, it has, every day, it has these blocks in it. And I block out 2.5 hours for myself every morning.
Wow.
Now, what I do in the morning has nothing to do with even coming close to taking 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is it forces me to be with myself. It forces me to do what I do every day. It gives me more than enough time to do each of those things. I mean, what I read in the morning takes me nothing more than 15 minutes, but I have it blocked out for a half an hour.
Wow.
Some days it takes 5. Some days it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is by giving myself those buffers, it starts my day out with so much more relaxation and patience.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm not in a rush.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I used to roll out of bed when I could get up because I would stay up late with the kids, or I'd stay up late trying to do things. And I used to just get out of bed whenever I got up. But now that I've blocked this time and buffered this time in the morning, I have such better days, and my anxiousness and anxiety and self-doubting and questioning myself, you know, because those are all tied in, right? I mean, the doubt.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
The questioning yourself. It really is tied into that anxiety.
Let's see. You are great. Love your patience with the children. You are, Mike. You really are. So they said they hope you'll be coming back again soon. They can't get enough of you.
I'm in. I mean, look, when I talk about myself, right? And I talk about the reality. I'm always willing to come back, and you know that, Danette. Whenever you want, I'll come back. You know, I like sharing my stories because I hope that they help others.
And they do. I know that they do. And Rhonda says she blocks out time in the morning. It makes so much of a difference. Yeah. So
it does.
It does. Let me see. We have one more new comment, and then I'll see if. Oh, Mike, can you drop a link to your YouTube channel? I'll drop it. Not only will I drop it, I'll put it on a new post, because Mike drops a lot of videos on his channel, and a lot of them are very helpful. All right, Mike, I'm not going to ask you the marginalization question, but I am going to ask you 2 questions. What would you tell your younger self? Something you know now that you would have loved to tell the younger Mike?
I would never change a thing about my life. The lessons, the pain, everything I've gone through has gotten me where I am today, and that what I would never change. What I would tell my younger self is, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
That's it. And let the same path happen, because changing that path changes where I am today, and I don't want to change a thing.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing I'll ask you, and I'll ask you to keep it surrounding loss. If we have one takeaway about loss from our chat with you today, what would you want that to be if we could only walk away with one thing?
Whether you're losing yourself, you're losing people, you're losing possessions, things, circumstances, situations, really look at it for what it is, right? There are people that come in and out of your life for a reason. There are people that leave at certain times, whether it's permanent or temporary. There are people that we push out at different times, whether it's permanent or temporary. I think the biggest thing to deal with loss of any kind is to be very introspective, very, very self-aware, and see what steps led up to that loss. Now, the sudden losses, obviously, you just have to deal with the best you can. But when it comes to anything outside of that, there are steps that happen, and you need to learn your process for how those steps come. Because once you do, then it prevents future loss or future letdowns, right? Or anything to that extreme.
All right. I'm just going to check the chat really quickly, and then I'm going to let you go. Take care, Sydney, and the others. So maybe others need to see your testimonies, and you know I'm a huge fan. That's Rhonda is a huge fan. You know we are all huge fans of you, Mike, here at Corona Daze Professional Development Group. I appreciate you, and you know you're always welcome to come back and share anything you'd like with us. So you have the open invite whenever you want. I'm not saying come back next week. Whenever you want, you just let me know, and we'll go with that. All right?
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, great.
Definitely...
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.